Hari Om. Let's start with the prayer. Om Samasta Jana Kalyane Niratam Karunamayam Namomi Chinmayam Devam Sadgurum Brahma Vidvaram Vasudeva Sutam Devam Kamsachanura Mardhanam Devaki Paramanandam Krishnam Vande Jagadgurum Tvameva Mata Cha Pitattvameva Tvameva Bandhuscha Sakhattvameva Tvameva Vidya Dravidam Tvameva Tvameva Sarvam Mama Deva Deva Tvameva Sarvam Gurudeva Deva. Hari Om. We are doing the question and answers on Vedanta, and one of the questions is, how do we communicate through words? And that is how knowledge is communicated, because that's how Sabda Pramana is through word of mouth. Since it's not Pratyaksha Pramanam or any other Pramanams, it's only Sabda Pramanam. So question is how the knowledge can be communicated. And there are two types of the communication. One is called descriptive words, second one is called introductory words. Descriptive words are essentially we covered in terms of the Avantara Vakyas. And what are the descriptive words and what is the introductory words? And here is the four types that we can think of. One is the four type of cases that we can think of. One is, say, suppose we want to know about Mr. Jones. Somebody told me, read about Mr. Jones. And Mr. Jones, now we went through the books and all the encyclopedia, Google and all that, and we learned so much about Mr. Jones, and all that comes under indirect knowledge. We have knowledge of everything about Mr. Jones, but we have not met him. We want to meet him, and this knowledge that we have by studying all that information that is from the third hand is only called a jnanam. We call it just the information knowledge or indirect knowledge also, or paroksha jnanam. That is that information that we learn from many books and encyclopedias and Google and all that. That's a case one, and that is called jnanam. That means knowledge I have. We know everything about Mr. Jones and we can talk about all that. That's a case one. Case two, they say we met a person and we were introduced, hey, this is Mr. Jones, and essentially we know all about him in the introduction. We know that he is so and so, so and so, so and so, because we have never heard about Mr. Jones before, and first time we are be introducing, and this is Mr. Jones, and in that introduction they gave essentially some essential knowledge about Mr. Jones, that which first time I came to know who is Mr. Jones, and I am meeting him. So since I am meeting him, so I have personal introduction also, at the same time information also. So I have little bit of jnanam and little bit of vijnanam. Vijnanam means there I am personally introduced, so I have an experience knowledge also. But I do not have the depth of information about Mr. Jones. I know superficially, so he is so and so and he did some great things, and I have not recognized by meeting and hearing all that the depth of knowledge that is really important later that I find I should know, should have known that all that. So that is jnanam, vijnanam, but it's only superficial knowledge only. That's a case two. Case three, that we met Mr. X and we don't know anything about Mr. Jones, and we know so much about the what is this? So I'm facing him, but I don't know much about Mr. Jones at all, other than he's so and so and so and so. So now I am experiencing Mr. Jones, but I have no knowledge about him completely. And other than his name, Mr. Jones and so, and he is a good friend of my friend. So that is only what is called experiential knowledge. But later I may learn a lot more about Mr. Jones, so I wish I could have known. And now when I'm introduced to Mr. Jones, I am only vijnanam but no jnanam. That means I have experience and I don't have any knowledge about about the depth of information about Mr. Jones. This is what we do normally. We are experiencing Brahman all the time. Because there is never a time we are not experiencing Brahman being infinite. Anything is nothing but Brahman only. And we are experiencing ourselves also all the time, because the I am there all the time. But I do not know who I am, nor I do not know the depth of knowledge of Brahman also. That's the case 3. Case 4 is, I know everything about Mr. Jones, just as in the first case, and I learn anything, I'm longing to meet him, and suddenly someone introduces him, this is Mr. Jones that you wanted to meet. Then I said, my God, he is the Jones that I wish that I would have met him before. I am so happy to meet him. So now I have a first background knowledge, Jnanam is there. Now I have Vijnanam also, because I am experiencing that meeting him personally by introduction, and therefore I have a knowledge supported by experience. That's called Jnanam, and Anubhavam support. And that is the highest, that's called Jnana Vijnanam. And whole 7th chapter of Gita talks about Jnana Vijnana Yoga. So not only we need a Jnanam, about which is essentially Paroksha Jnanam, and we need the direct introductory statements where that knowledge that I have is indeed this, and therefore introductory, this is that Mr. Jones that I have been talking about, I have been in knowledge, that Vijnanam has seals the knowledge, and those Vijnanam statements are called Mahavakyas that we discussed. So there are 4 Mahavakyas, one from each Vedas. They are introducing, you are that, because I am already there, right there, and that I know all about it before. So it is an identity equation that helps, and that is what is called Jnanam and Vijnanam. These are 4 types of communication, and that's what Vedanta does through Shravana, Manana, Nididhyasana. And these are the contemplative statements, because I have misunderstood what is that, I have misunderstood what I am, even though I am experiencing both of them all the time. And yet I have no correct knowledge of who that I am stand for and what is that Brahman that stand for. And when the scripture talks about, after discussing what is that Brahman by through Avantara Vakyas, like Yato va imani bhutani jayante yena jatani jivanti, all that tad vinyasasva tad brahmeti, that is Brahman. And so I know all about Brahman, but still I don't have experience. That's what people say, I have been listening to Vedanta, but I have not realized. So what does that mean? That means he has not understood the statement of Mahavakyas yet. At least that has to be understood. Then only the complete Jnanam and Vijnanam will be fulfilled, and that's the essence of 7th chapter Gita, Jnana Vijnana Yoga. With that we'll stop. With that, Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vasishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha.